Hi, my name is John Brooks, and for my project 2, I did a web for teaching for equality, and that's from Chapter 3, Socioeconomic Class and Status. Real quick, look at the definition of equality, the state of different inequalities, and racial, gender, age are a few of them. Those can exist in education as well. Education equality is a measure of achievement, fairness, and opportunity in education. So whether it's based on race, sex, or age, whatever it might be, everyone getting the fair chance to succeed in school is what we're talking about today and what we're looking at, how to create that. So focus on socioeconomic status and class, that's what we're focusing on in this presentation. So we'll go back to the home. We'll start with teacher expectations. Okay, teacher expectations simply is what do we expect from our students, from each one of them individually, from the group as a whole. What are our expectations? What do we expect them to succeed, to gain, whatever it is? We look at how our expectations can affect them, the Pygmalion effect. Positive expectations affect performance positively. Negative expectations affect performance negatively. So if we expect positive things, we'll get positive results from those students. If we expect negative things, we'll get negative results. Pretty simple, and that's the theory and the effect that has been proven to be the case psychologically for students. A quote from Rosenthal and Babad: "When we expect certain behaviors of others, we are likely to act in ways that make the expected behavior more likely to occur." So if it's expected of me, then I'm going to do what it takes to try to achieve that because I know it's expected, or because I know that people are looking at me to actually accomplish that or complete that or act in that certain way. So teachers need to view this as a challenge and accept it. Make the students better learners and help them to overcome any challenges they have in learning. So how do we make them better learners? How do we expect them to get better at something and then adjust our teaching to make sure that happens and giving them the best opportunities to succeed, and not leaving anyone out of our expectations, not lowering expectations for some students and hiring them for others. Too many times we build a stereotype around a certain student based on their class or perceived mental capacity or ability. We see a rich kid, we think he's had more resources growing up or in learning up until this point, so he probably knows more, so I'm going to assume he knows more. I'm going to teach him more intellectually or more harsh as far as the grading or the expectations are. We got to even out those expectations across everyone and expect great things from all of them. When we think a student is capable of less, we treat them as such. So when we see a student that we think, man, he probably can't do this because he hasn't been taught this, or he hasn't had the experiences to think about that or think about learning how to do that. 2 rules for your classroom or in your mind as you establish a classroom is never forecast failure. Never allow it, never let students think it's going to happen or think it's a possibility, or even they're allowed to fail. They're not allowed to fail. And set high expectations for all of them. So not only can they not fail, but they need to exceed and be successful more than even they believe they can. Push them into being believers in themselves. Click on the home screen, takes back to the web here. We're going to move on. We're going to talk about tracking. And tracking is the practice of putting or separating students into different groups based on their intellectual abilities. And this class matters. Teachers tend to actually base it on class rather than true intellectual ability. A lot of times we don't know what our intellectual ability of our students is, and we end up tracking these kids or putting them in groups the day they walk into our classroom, the first day we have them, and they're never taken out of those groups because they're never pushed to build out of it, or they don't have the tools to them because you're focused on these high-level learners and these low-level learners, and you don't think the low-level learners are capable of moving to the high-level class. So, just be mindful of that when we're thinking about class, is that it's not necessarily true. And some kids that have a bad upbringing are capable of as many great things as any other student or any other student in an upper-class family. Class doesn't always matter. Teachers in low-ability classrooms spend more time on discipline and administration, so we're using more time to re-explain rules or discipline students for not acting right. Different standards are set and accepted because of the perception. So we think we allow them to get away with more So our standards are lower for these kids anyway, and that's a problem. Upper-class white families have dominance in gifted and talented classrooms. These white upper-class families, the kids might have better resources, so we fast-track them into being in a talented level or a talented classroom, when in reality they might not be any more ahead than other students. Courts agree that tracking students into low-ability courses is discriminatory practice and limits their educational opportunities and their potential success later in life. If you mark them as unintelligent or as of lower intelligence and teach them that way all through the rest of their school career, it's going to affect them in school, outside of school, and life, because they have lower expectations, because they've been put in this low expectation group when there's a high expectation group that's getting more attention or more expertise or more solid teaching rather than just disciplinary and surface teaching that the low class is getting, and it affects them for the rest of their life. Detracking is the goal, and eliminating grouping this way if we can. It's our job to provide instruction and not allow stereotypes to influence our teaching and your teaching to your classes. Letting students believe that they're going to be successful and helping them get into the high-level classroom, even if we don't think they belong there in the beginning. How do we get them there? How do we push them to be on the same level as other students? And how do we also push students that are of the high level and not dumbing down a curriculum for them? We have to be able to challenge both groups in our classroom and make them better learners. Click our home screen. There we go. Next we'll look at curriculum for equality. The curriculum for equality. Improvised and altered teaching styles. Delivery method for students in lower class schools. Believing in the students when other people in their life may not. High expectations create high success. It all comes back to expectations, especially in our curriculum even. Improvise and alter the way we teach. Authenticity, relating the content to students' prior experiences and real-world applications. Students have different experiences, and they have different values because of that. A student that doesn't get to eat every night at dinner time is going to value when you talk about how do we get my family to eat every night, or how do you relate the content to what these students are going through. Know your crowd, know your students that you're working with. I personally work in a high-poverty school, and these kids have different values. School's not something their parents even care about sometimes. Some of them do, but some of them don't. And it's not something they value because they haven't been taught to value that. They've been taught to fight for their next meal. How do I get my next meal? How do we all come together and put bread in our cabinet or whatever it is? They have different values and different things that are more important to them. How do you relate what they're learning in classroom or what you're trying to teach them, relate it to what's important to them and how they perceive the world based on their experiences? Students should have a curriculum that encourages the development of critical thinking and problem-solving skills. So like I said, building it around what they know and what they understand, and then how do they push themselves to learn it and apply it and become better for it or become better later in life for it. How do you make them better thinkers? How do you make them or help them solve problems that they're going to face? Going on to school funding, our last section of the graphic there. School funding. So look at just the percentages real quick. It's state funded by 44.1%. It's local government funded by 43.4%, and then federally 12.5% funded. So local business and economy will greatly affect the amount of money available to the schools, so their resources will be lower or higher based on the amount of money they get. A lot of their funding is coming from local government. So if you live in a high poverty town, there's probably not a lot of really good business going on, or where the taxes are going to be lower, whatever the case might be. They're not getting the money coming in because they don't have the opportunities around the school itself and the district. It creates an even larger gap between low communities and upper class communities because of where they live, because of the businesses available, because of the funds available. The school with less resources will have lower wages for workers, teachers, and facilities will not be advanced. The learning environment as a whole is not as privileged. This creates the gap, an even larger gap, because if we're already stereotyping people based on their looks, based on their class, and then we're going to other schools where they have more money, more funding, higher pay scale, whatever it might be, that school's going to have the upper hand and an advantage. So how do we close that gap? How do we get students or get teachers in these less funded schools, and how do we pay them to be there where they're not going to jump and leave for a higher paying school district? Is there a way to adjust the local funding? I don't know, but we know school funding is an issue, especially when 43% of it is locally funded, and you have high class districts and low class districts battling, or even just miles apart, and all the good, no, I don't want to say all the good teachers, but the teachers that want more money are going to go over here and make more money where there's more money available to them and better resources and facilities and everything like that. So school funding is a big issue. And that is my conclusion.